Thank you so much for joining us and being part of our conversation. It's been a while, but we're excited to be back with another one. And so we're just going to jump right in discussing things and just kind of focusing our discussion on the community. So you had a thought you wanted to share.
Right. So to me, while I was in my active addiction, I had people who did notice and who would point things out, like, they had a gut feeling, right. Like something's wrong, or you're acting different or whatever. And being in addiction, I didn't want to be exposed.
Right.
So my choice a lot of times was to lie, and it was to redirect, maybe even manipulate somebody who cared about me, so that so that I wasn't exposed and I could continue to do what I was doing.
Right.
And I felt like that it would be an important part to really kind of help other people understand what maybe some of those things that we do, that would be warning signs, I guess.
So basically, people have an intuition on something's off.
Right.
And whether it's a relationship, just natural behavior,
right.
Our own countenance,
right.
The atmosphere we kind of put off, and people have intuition about that, how they can recognize it better and respond better.
Right. Well, part of that, I think that what happens is, so let's say that you're someone who, not that you don't care about me, that's not what I'm trying to say, but let's say that you're someone who cares and loves me.
Right.
And you, as that person, do not, you want to stay in denial, because that's how we, that's just kind of how we deal sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, it's rather than denying that instinct or that feeling that you have, pursue it,
Right.
And the reason I say, so the reason, just to get back a little bit, why I feel this way is because I had a friend almost 2 years ago now who came to me several times, talking about, that he feels ashamed and guilty about, because he got back into meth, which if you guys don't know yet, that was kind of my choice of drugs. So that's kind of the world that I was in.
Yeah.
But he kept coming back, and then, there were little signs that, and instinctual things for me where I thought, ooh, something else isn't right.
Right.
Or things like that. But I didn't push, and I didn't, I just thought, well, when he needs to come to me, he will.
Yeah.
So one night I got a message from him, talking about, he hated the way his life was going because he can't seem to get away from the meth. His girlfriend is doing whatever. I don't want to get into details, but, and, I sent him back, and I just told him, I'm like, look, you're a good person.
Yeah.
And you have a lot to give to this world, and, anytime you want, you can come and talk to me. Well, that night he killed himself. And so I spent months thinking to myself, well, could I have done something different? What could I have done?
Right.
And those are the kinds of experiences in my life that have driven me to do something like this.
Yeah.
Because I don't want, I know that I can't make somebody not do something,
right.
But I don't want to miss the opportunity to at least try to help someone.
Oh.
And I think that everybody else who's around like an addict feels that particular, they feel that way. Like, I don't know how to help, but let's not ignore it. And that's kind of what happens is when the addict lies or whatever, you want to believe it because you don't want it to be what it is.
Right.
And I get that. I fully get that. And and I hate that happens, but it does.
Right.
And it's scary because, especially these days, because things are changing. The drugs ain't the same.
Right.
They're doing things that just it ain't okay.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are dying from this.
Well, it's a lot of times because I can relate in one sense of not wanting to change the status quo. We're that reluctance to make effectual change. We don't want to disrupt things.
Right.
Whether it's out of fear what it could turn into,
right?
Because we fear what the results could be of the fallout of something, or maybe that, or the other side could be that we're comfortable. Now, maybe comfort might be the wrong word, but we just
gotten used to it.
We got used to it.
Causes comfort.
Yeah, and so we kind of have this: I don't want to make change,
right.
or I fear what change could bring, and so we kind of that in between those two places, we'll call that the status quo, and so we stay there because we don't want to go off into either side, and so
right. And let me first say that fear doesn't really exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's in your mind,
right?
And that doesn't mean that it doesn't feel real.
Right.
But it's just not, because whatever happens is going to happen, and God's hand is going to be involved, however it's involved. So, but the other part of that also is that the status quo doesn't help. We need to wipe that out.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
And the thing I do want to get across is that as the community or the person who is surrounding this, the addict. I'm not saying anything that you are doing something wrong, because that is not the purpose of what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm saying that you could do more, maybe, or you could do something differently, because just allowing that addict to continue on is it's not only just his life, but it's everybody around him and the community that he's in, because because they do things that that they might not even want to do,
mm-hmm.
but they feel like they have to, because they have to get this drug, and they have to, this is their existence,
Yeah.
And so, so I kind of would like to go through a couple of things that I feel like
absolutely
would help someone who is around an addict, or even somebody's who knows somebody who's around an addict, some of the things that they could point out.
So then that is really great. So I guess a good question to lead into then is, what are some of the intuitions that the things that people will pick up on,
right?
The signs that they see, and then what is, and this might be more inclined to your experience. But what is some of the best ways you can respond to your own intuition?
Okay, some of the signs is when I first started getting into the meth part,
you can keep talking.
I started having a personality change,
mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like this all of a sudden, bam.
Yeah.
It was a progression, and
okay.
And so somebody who's around you a lot will start to notice that you become a little more isolated, or you're a little more angry, or you're preoccupied more than you normally are, or or sometimes they become overly not involved, but overly like let's make this show, mm-hmm. so that this is what they think is happening, because back here I'm doing what I'm doing.
So almost like nothing to see over here, like the magician's trick. They will distract you over this when the real trick is happening back here.
Right.
And and so that's one of the signs where you notice, like, why are, like, and I like how you put that, overly involved, and so the perception that they're building in someone's mind is this is who I am over here.
Right.
So that makes sense. Yeah.
Right, and and so the most subtle part of it I think, is the personality, and but as someone who might live with that person or sees that person on a regular basis, you start to have this instinct like, something doesn't feel right.
So the triage level is those close proximity individuals. So the people who have the opportunity to find out first are members of one's own household, or and I would say that first, and it was followed very, very closely by very close friends who are not in that particular circle, if I can put it that way.
And seeing the problem with that is that those are the people who care and love this person.
Yes.
And so they might feel that instinct, and they might even confront it, and be like, hey, what's going on? But they also want it to be okay,
right? And
they want to believe the addict, and they want to pretend sometimes, and it's not their fault, It's not like, I can't imagine anybody sitting there thinking to themselves, hey, I'm just gonna pretend like this addict isn't using. It's just the natural thing, because you love this person, you naturally want to believe the best.
As a parent, I'm raising 3 kids, 14 to 4, and so I've got a teenager, a child, and a toddler, full spectrum.
Teenager.
And so big teenager, oh boy. And then in the midst of that, the natural inclination is, oh, not my child,
right? And
so you become, as a parent, you're like, no, I'm.
You get yourself into denial.
You can tie yourself into the image of who your child is when they're present with you versus who is that child really.
Right.
And you put yourself in denial, and then it's, oh, not little Billy. Billy will never do something like that.
Right. And that's kind of some of what we had talked about before, is that we need to stop being in denial. Because to me, what happens is if you're healthy, it makes it more difficult for me to not be healthy. Right. Because there becomes a clash, and so that narrows the addict's scope of where he can maneuver, and because there's more exposure around to him, and so it's difficult, and it might cause them to do a fall maybe a little quicker. I don't know, and these are just thoughts,
but exactly.
So there's the personality. That has a change. The other thing that starts to happen is they either isolate, or you find that they're not around. They want to answer your calls. They want to answer your texts. They're avoiding.
Well, and they
avoid every the life.
And that is a form of isolation.
Right.
I think that's one thing too. It's not just there's physical isolation.
Yeah.
But then there's communication and emotional isolation that happens as well, or we can say mental isolation, where they're isolating themselves, they're enclosing themselves in a communication bubble, a response bubble, kind of those things like the like when it talks about my mind is going to think about like fatherhood, and so it's thinking of the way that you can have a present father, an engaged father, an absent father, or an emotionally absent father. Right. And a lot of those times, the only one that's not present is the one that is the physically absent father. But all the others, so you can have somebody who's there sitting on the couch beside you
and still be absent.
Right. And so you can have the addict who your intuition is going off because they're in isolation while they're right there beside you.
Right. And that'll be kind of the beginning of it, where you'll see these small spurts of isolation. Now, there could be other things that go on in someone's life,
right?
And so you have to get that in consideration too. But what I did was, I'd be like, well, I'm gonna go out for a little bit, and 3 days later.
Right.
I'd show back up.
Oh, hey, I'm back.
Yeah. So that's an odd thing, nobody.
Yeah.
really does that, but you want to just be like, oh, they just were out at a friend's having fun, and you want to kind of deny what may be happening.
Yeah.
And so my thought on some of that is don't do that. Confront them. Let them know that you and don't let them lie to you, because if your instinct is telling you something, listen to it.
Right.
Because they might deny it, they might lie about it, they whatever they do, don't allow yourself to fall into that.
Yeah.
Because you're not helping them by falling into it. You have to expose the whole thing. And I'm not saying being an ass about everything. Right. But I'm saying let them know that
Well, I think sometimes with that kind of good follow up, I think it's as if the individual in question, and I'm almost tempted to use the word victim for the addict just because of what this stuff does to them. Sure. And I don't mean to be offensive with that. I just, my mind is thinking of that mentality with them. But with the individual in question, if they're a minor, under 18, you as a parent or a guardian over an individual like that, you have an ability you need to use, right. And that's and honestly that's to be a good parent or a guardian. And if they're out at night, not even the second night, that first night, right. Hey, where are you? What's going on? Why you didn't tell me where you were going. As a parent, we have to be responsible for our children, and so with teenagers, you say don't be a pest about it, but that idea of like, no, I'm being an involved parent. Right. If something goes down and you get in trouble, guess who they're going to come after? Right. Guess who they're going to investigate? Right. Me. So I'm being a good parent by making sure I know where you're at all times, and so I guess that's one way as a parent, like pay attention to your kids. Sure. And be an involved individual, I guess, is a good way of putting it. Right.
And there's multiple ways to be involved.
Yeah.
But what I really want to get across is that if you really love that person, then you need to be honest with yourself about what they're doing.
Yes.
And whether they are or not, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Where they're at, or where their honesty, where their mind is, where they're whatever they're doing. What matters is for you.
Yeah.
Is that you don't allow yourself to fall into it, because then it becomes a cycle that is hard to break.
Yes.
For everyone. And when that happens, I know people who I know too many people, I think. But I know one guy, he lives at his mom's, and she will give him money knowing he's going to get drugs, and hoping that he'll come home and do it in her basement,
right?
So that she knows where he is, and that he's safe and he's not out getting in trouble or getting arrested or getting dead, and so she does that because she thinks that she's protecting him, and I get it, right. I really do, because I think about my kids, I would want to shelter them the best way that I could, and if this is what they're going to do, then I'm going to have to, right. I'm going to have to do what I have to do to keep them sheltered.
The problem with that though is what I hear, because I have people, I grew up with people like that where, right. Hey, my kid's going to go out drinking, so instead of waiting until they're 21, I'm gonna have them over at my house and I'll buy the drinks for them, right. So that they can drink at 14.
Right.
And so the problem, the issue I see with that is, and I'm going to use the example of arsenic, right? Hey, you're going to go get arsenic on the street. It's a deadly poison. You shouldn't get it on the street. So I'll give you arsenic at home.
Right.
The issue comes in is like they're feeding the problem.
Right.
The only thing that's different is the location.
Right.
The issue still remains.
Right. And I think part of the process in that thought is that they feel like they're protecting them because at least they know where they're at.
Right.
But if you really care about that person, you won't do that. you can't cater to it.
Right.
You know, these drugs, they're killing people.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
that's
and
they're catering it at their home.
Right. It's destroying their lives. It's taking their soul, and I'm a testament to that.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that there was a point there where I was lost completely, and because of that, the only thing that was really I was interested in was getting high. And when that's all you can think about, you're not you're gonna it feels like a comfort when somebody's like, hey, just do it in here, stay, you know what I mean? Then you're like, oh, well, I can do all the drugs I want. Well, then you start doing more,
right?
Because you feel like you're safe, and that can turn bad really quick.
Well, the example I gave of the family buying drinks for their minor kids, the rough part was, and this upsets me as a pastor, is they were a family in a local church, not this church, but one that in my past, and this family was involved in there, not realizing the far-reaching impact, because not only were their kids drinking, but then they were bringing their friends over to their house, and their friends were drinking as well.
Right.
And so when you have family that are brothers and sisters going over to this family's home, and then you wonder why their personality has shifted, and why by the time they're 15, 16, they're behaving as addicts.
Right.
And it's like you're not protecting your child by doing this.
No.
You're actually propagating it. You're actually increasing the impact when you allow it like that.
Right. You know, and like I know someone who they first of all they live with their grandmother, and then every day they're asking for money, and the grandma knows where it's going, but she wants to make sure that they're safe. Well, that has to stop. So, like I said, the personality changes. The physically, you'll start. There'll be distance there. You'll start to see some distance. Some of the things that you'll see, also on a physical, and I'm strictly talking about meth addicts.
Okay. Yes.
Because this is my wheelhouse, and
absolutely.
I don't, I do know a little bit about heroin or the other drugs. I've done a lot more, but my focus stayed on meth. And so one of the things is that the hours they keep, they're scattered. They don't sleep much, so that's kind of a warning sign. You'll start to see some physical attributes, like they start to kind of grind their jaw a little bit. They might speak a little faster. You don't get a lot of eye contact out of them. They'll start to pick, which means that they feel like something's on their face, and they'll pick it. So you'll start to see a lot of scarring or
scab buildup,
right? Things like that, like they've been picking at themselves. You'll start to see maybe like the lights are kind of going out in the eyes, even though they're there, they're not really there. Some people who stay up long periods of times, because on meth you can stay up for a long time. I've stayed up weeks before, which just seems insane in itself. But part of the problem when you do that is that your mind is tired, and so it causes you to kind of lose it a little bit. You start to hallucinate. You start to get really paranoid. You start to trip on things that doesn't really make sense. You think someone's out to get you. So if you start to hear stuff like that, it's a good sign. They also will start to get these weird movements, like they're always twitching and, things like that. Along with the personality, they start to not only lie and manipulate, but most of them become thieves. you know, because they want to get something that they can sell or trade or whatever.
Right.
And you might notice this missing and think, oh, you just misplaced it or whatever, or, you know, but when you start to see, you know, and because it is possible somebody misplaced them, but if you start to see a pattern of that happening, you know, like every couple of days or, you know, once a week or things like that, then it's time to really, like, you really need to internalize what's really going on, and you need to be able to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you're not honest, you're just allowing it to happen, and that just allows them to get worse.
Yeah. Well, if you see like all of those signs occurring,
well, if you see
within
them all,
a window,
they're almost done.
I'm not. I don't want to say that you're too late, because you're never too late to do something. So don't. If you see all the signs and all the stuff's happening, all the symptoms are there, it's never too late.
Right.
But you have no question what's going on right there, and you need to do something.
Right.
Because the too late is when you have to call the funeral home. Too late is when you have to call the clergy and set up a memorial. Too late is when there's nothing left to be had.
Right.
So that's too late. But so in that moment, like, you know, hey, you got no question what's going on. Now we need to address it, and don't take it as a joke. Don't handle it lightly.
Right.
Don't have the good old boy of, you know, Johnny will never do this.
Right.
Hey, this is what's going on.
And you can't go in with the mentality that you hope that this isn't the case.
Right.
You have to just be honest with yourself, and that's difficult. It really is, especially when it's loved ones. It's so hard, but you have to be because for that addict to actually get healthy, they have a process they have to go through. But if you're healthy, it makes it difficult for them to continue in that addiction, and it might cause that process to start a little earlier. You know, and as long as it happens before, like you said, it's a funeral. You know, that's kind of the point of all this, is we want to see, because you know, I know I've said this before, 2% is where it's at right now.
Wow.
2% of people who find recovery, who are addicts, actually make it.
Right.
You know, that's not acceptable.
No,
you know, and the why. So our process right now is they get in trouble, they go through the court system, they're either forced to go into treatment or forced to go to jail, right? And then after that, they just kind of, we did our job. No.
Well, because you're dealing with a life here,
right?
And so the process is nearly lifelong. And I like how you say, like, once you're in recovery, you're always in recovery.
Yeah, it never
and
stops.
So it's like, you know, you find as people progress, there's different ways how you handle. You like raising a kid. You're not going to treat your teenager like a toddler. You're going to treat them like an adult.
Right.
And so there is that progression, but you're still always involved. There's still always that involvement.
Yeah.
And even though, you know, and so people regress, or they go back to the old patterns. And so that's why when they go into the court system, they go through treatment, they come out, they stumble, they go back into old patterns. And I think that's probably even at sometimes might be a little bit more, I don't want to say stressful, but just a little maybe harder to catch, because in their mind, like, yes, they went through treatment, that's not it. They think that once the treatment's occurred, that they're healed and fixed. When no, sometimes.
Not sometimes. It's always.
And so
it's the beginning.
It
takes years to get to a point where they are healthy.
And so they come out of that treatment and they're back at home, and you start seeing these patterns emerge again. And it's like, okay, that's where you sit down and have this honest conversation. Look, I'm seeing some signs that I saw way back when.
But you can't do that if you're not healthy.
Right.
Because you're still in that other pattern. Well, and that's the whole point is, you know, we have to be healthy. And part of being healthy is being honest.
Yes.
And seeing things for what they really are.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not just being honest about that person, it's being honest to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I have to admit, this is part of my program actually, you know, being an addict, is that I have to be honest with myself and admit to myself that I do have problems.
Yeah.
And that I'm not right all the time, and that I will make mistakes, and I have to be able to, in order for me to change those things, I have to at least see them.
Right.
Because if I don't see them, I can't do nothing about them. You know, and so that's kind of the way I feel about the community thing is if we could just really be honest with ourselves, and it's a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not saying it's easy, and you know, as an addict, I feel guilty that I've put people in the position where they have to do different things and whatever just to protect me.
Right.
You know, and so I don't want to see that, because if they hadn't done that, I might have hit my bottom a little sooner, or I might have been, you know, because what's the most important thing in this world? God and love, right?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have either, you know,
Yeah.
and so, but I felt like it was love when they were kind of trying to protect me,
Mm-hmm.
but it really wasn't.
Right.
You know, it was actually kind of the opposite, because you're not really loving me, because you're feeding into this thing that is killing me.
Right.
You know, and that's, you know,
Well, that's like
if you can look at it that way, you know,
Yeah.
like, no, if I continue to let this happen, I'm killing you.
Well,
if you look at it that way, you could probably be a little more honest with
it's
yourself.
kind of like with cancers. You know, if you know, as an individual, you see someone's health deteriorate. Okay, something's wrong. Well, I'm just gonna love you. Are you comfortable today? What do you want to eat? Let's go have fun. And you just ignore
What's going on?
What's going on.
Right.
The healthy person says, "Hey, I'm sick. Something's off." And then the healthy friends say, "Yes, something's off. Let's go to a doctor.
Right.
Let's go through the process together of making you well." Now that's hard because, hey, guess that means treatment. That means accountability. That means, you know, hard, uncomfortable steps, because the process
for the person who has cancer, but
yes,
but it also means the same for the person that's going to go through it with them.
yes,
And that's what the part I'm talking about. If we
Yes.
could get this person who is going through this process with them to step away and get into a more healthy situation, this person here, you know, the addict is more exposed and is less likely to have I don't know how to explain it. Is less likely to continue down that road and go deeper.
Yeah.
Because how do you...
They see the impact on their relationships.
Right.
Yeah. I think one thing that's kind of interesting. Years ago, we had traveled to Washington State to visit with my family, and at the time, my oldest was barely 1 at the time, and he came out about 2 a.m. in the morning, complaining about his chest hurting, lungs hurting. It hurt, Daddy, it hurt. Come to find out, he was having severe asthma attacks.
Okay.
And so I see this kid who's in pain breathing. And so we ended up getting a nebulizing machine, you know, to nebulize and give him breathing treatments. First, the treatments, he hated them. He did not like it. He was mad. He cried. It was very upsetful for him. He just did not like being in that place. And as a parent, we don't necessarily like hurting our kids.
Right.
You know, it causes us pain when we have to induce pain on someone else.
Right.
That's a natural, loving response. Like when we have to issue a correction, it's almost hard because as a parent, you feel, I'm correcting myself on this too.
Right.
It's the same way with that addict. We like, and I love how you said there, like, it doesn't just cause pain on the one who's receiving the treatment or receiving the process of healing that they need. The ones who are walking with them are feeling the exact, like they're feeling their version of the pains as well.
Right.
And but then I think it's important for those the addict and those who are receiving the help to see how much pain it is causing, because then the motivation comes, I don't want to cause them that pain.
Right.
At least that's my interpretation of it. I don't know if I'm not off, but
no, that makes complete sense. You know, and you know, and kind of when you were talking, I was thinking about some of the things that I had done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would be a red flag.
Right.
So just to tell you some of the idiotic things a little bit is there was one time I hid behind a shop vac in our garage, squatted down for probably close to 8 hours because I kept thinking that the cops were walking outside of my garage. This is how paranoid that you get. I
behind a shop vac.
Yeah, ridiculous. I listened, and like it, and it was just me being on this drug, and it was stupid.
Yeah.
I remember one time I ran through the swamps because I thought Strom was chasing me on a 4-wheeler, and I ran through there all day, and I finally got to a friend's house, and I was like, I know he was, and they were just like, yeah, it's time for you to go to sleep. So you'll see crazy things that you're like, that was stupid. What was that all about?
Yeah.
Those are kind of those exposure moments where you can be like, yeah, the other thing is that I guess I didn't mention is that when they come home or you see them and they sleep.
Yeah.
And when they sleep, it tends to be sometimes days. I know that there were, I in my addiction, I was a napper. I would nap every 3-4 days for a couple hours and then get back on it, get going. But there are a lot of people, they will, when they come down, they just sleep for, a good day or more. It's just not normal, unless if you're sick.
Right.
But
again, the other signs are all there.
Right. And I don't want you, the thing is that I don't want anybody to deny it to themselves that, oh, he's just tired, he's sick, or, oh, it's just been a rough day. Don't do that to yourself. Just allow yourself to be honest with yourself and to and to follow through with that instinct, because you're probably right, and how do you, so the other part of this is, how do you approach that?
Right.
I think that the best approach is to just be honest.
Yeah.
I think, Pastor, I think there's something wrong. I've noticed these things, and, I think there's something wrong, and I think you might need some help. But I want you to understand that I do see that you're doing this, and you can tell me whatever you want, but I am not going to allow myself to fall into that. So you need to be honest with me. And I think that, because a lot of times when someone there have been times when, so the reason that my parents, my mom and stepdad, Sue and Richard, they suspected, but they would approach me like, is this going on? And I would just, no, and shoo them this way.
Right.
The reason that they actually know that I was getting high is because one time I was downstairs and I fell asleep with 2 pipes in my hand, bubbles. And she woke me up screaming, busted them, you need to, get out. And, which I fully understand. I had drugs and everything in her house. And then I was like, I told her I just need sleep,
Right.
So she allowed me to sleep, which I'm grateful for. But then it was, you brought drugs into my house. You exposed my house to a possible, you need to get out, and you need to stay out until you can get yourself right. And it wasn't much longer after that the police were chasing me down, and I was in jail and then prison, and and I can't imagine how hard that was for her, because I'm her only child, and it must have just tore her apart. But she was able to be honest with herself about what was going on. Yeah. And part of it was because Richard, I don't know if you knew Richard, but
no, I mean,
okay. So Richard and the community of church that they were in, they were all trying to surround them and allow them to to be healthy. And had they not had that healthy mind, they would have been like, okay, I would have been like, I won't do it again, and they would have been like, okay, you can stay, just don't do this again. Well, I got to tell you, as an addict, don't do it again means I'm just not doing it until I finally get myself able to get up and go do it.
Right.
So don't believe that garbage.
Right.
Just and don't let them lie to you. They're gonna try, and you're gonna want to believe them.
Yeah.
Because they are people that you care about or whatever, and that makes it difficult. But you're doing harm. They're doing the harm. I hate.
Well, it's twofold, because there's the one that is doing the harm to themselves,
right,
and then there's the one that's doing the harm by doing nothing,
right, or actually,
in allowing it, encouraging it, feeding it,
yeah,
the doing, not taking the accountability side of things.
right.
The phrase that comes up in my mind is tough love.
Right.
Your mom came into you in that moment,
right,
and did the tough love.
Right.
Because what you just said, you can't have this here.
Right.
You put yourself in order, and then you can come back.
Right.
And that's hard, because that's the thing. Tough love is tough. There's that part that
but it's love.
But it is love.
And
so
it's real.
You have to have both.
Right.
You have to have both. You have to have that honest
right.
with yourself. Hey, this is what's happening in my home.
Right.
This is what's happening with my friend. This is what's
right.
happening with my son, my daughter, my spouse.
Right.
My significant other. Like this is what's going on.
Right.
And then seeing that and be like, okay, the honest comes in is like, this is not acceptable.
Right.
So then, okay, one, deal with it.
Right.
You still affirm the love in the position. You still affirm the individual, right? Hey, I love you.
Right.
I am here for you. I am going nowhere.
Right.
But this can't keep going on.
You have to be the person to
Yeah.
start that recovery process.
Yeah.
And here's the other part, is that early, if you can really be honest and confront the addict earlier on,
Mm-hmm.
they still have they still have their mind. They still have that. They're still conscious of what they're doing. They're still
Right.
and not that we're unconsciously walking around, but
Right.
but they still have that. Their heart isn't hardened yet.
Right.
They still feel they know what they're doing is wrong,
Yeah.
and a lot of them are probably just waiting to be exposed and hoping somebody
Yeah.
will pull them out, because when you're stuck, it hurts.
Yeah.
and it's scary, and it's and you don't know what's happening to yourself, and you don't see a way out, and you pray to God that somebody, just anybody, will
Right.
pluck me from this and save me. But at the same time, you protect your own garbage,
Right.
so that you can continue down this. So it's very confusing, and I understand that, and there's no right way to do anything. I don't know of a right way, but I feel like if you can expose it at an early stage,
Yeah.
you might have a better chance of this person, so don't ignore it. And
Right.
see, that was the problem with my family, was that I don't know that they ignored it or they just weren't sure.
Yeah.
But when they were sure, they had to wait until they were absolutely positive.
Right.
Don't do that.
Right.
Don't wait till then, because
the earlier
because
you
at
catch
that
it, the better.
point, well, when they finally caught me, it was kind of too late, because I didn't give a
Yeah.
crap. It was
Yeah.
like, okay, let me sleep. I'm out of here. I'll go do my thing.
Right.
So, but there were signs ahead of time, and they knew it. And Richard he had confronted me once. Are you back here doing dope? And we weren't. We were just fixing a light, but I felt exposed at the moment. I realized that, he's watching out for this now.
Yes.
And so that that's kind of a good thing, because then at least I wasn't around there doing it. But I'm just saying, you can't. That's one of the things that I appreciate about my stepdad, was that he was honest with himself enough, because he had something in his past,
Right.
and so he was honest enough to be honest with me, and just be lay it on the line, and whatever I did with that as the addict is my choice.
Yeah.
But he did what he could.
Right.
And my mom was a little more quiet about it. She was she tried to stay in the background and didn't want to. I think she just didn't want to believe that her 40-year-old son was doing some of these things, and I understand that,
Yeah.
But like I said, without the community helping them to get healthy, there was no way that they would have, even if they would have found me with those, they probably would have just left me. Maybe they might have taken the pipes and then just said, just go to bed, and we don't want to deal with it. Just, but because they were getting healthy and they had a better state of mind, they were able to love me enough to say this is enough.
Right. There's a stronger community around them.
Right.
That helped keep their feet on the fire, I guess.
Right.
To kind of like, hey, we're with you. This is,
Right. But they were healthy at doing it.
But they did it
because they were honest. And
yes. And that honesty, strength community came around them. Right. They felt the strength of their community and allowed them to have the strength to say, okay, this is what needs to take place.
Yeah, because exposing it, you're going to need somebody to lean on. It doesn't just happen. Right. You should realize that even as an addict. So that's a great point for me. Is that as an addict, I can't do this alone. Right. My recovery is not, even though it's my recovery, it is a accumulation of people who have reached out and helped and let me lean on them and showed me the way. Yeah. And that's the same thing that I feel like the community should do for each other, so that this part of it, because it feels like a cancer right now in this community in particular. And, in order to get that cancer, we have to be honest that that's what it is. Well, and it's a cancer.
And it takes that community effort.
Right. And how do we expose it? What do we do about it? Yeah. How do we fix it? Well, I don't know that particular part, but you can't do it alone. Right. I can't do it alone as the addict. No. The people around me surely can't do it alone, because, so I'm just asking that, that people understand that you not only do you shouldn't do it alone, but it's okay not to do it alone. It's healthier for you, and to worry about whether someone judges you. Let me tell you, if someone judges you because you're trying to get healthy, then they're not the person for you in your process.
And that's the beauty of the whole process altogether is, if I can be strong, I can help somebody else. And the Bible talks about a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Well, what is that referencing? That's referencing just the strength of where 2 or 3 are gathered together, where there's more people together to stand with you. You're stronger for it. And so that comes into play where, hey, don't hide and don't do your fights on your own. Don't do your struggles and go through what season of difficulty, what storm you're facing. Don't sit there and isolate. I mean, because we can become trying to isolate ourselves in the middle of our storms. They could have been like, yes, I'm not going to share with what's going on. I'm going to hide it. We're going to deal with it ourselves. And then you internalize it. But then what happens is the whole thing just implodes. Versus what really needs to happen is you go to a community of strength. You go to, whether in a church, you can go to your church community or other places where you have like-minded people who can stand with you and be like, you're right, I will help you with this. What do you need? And then how can I help you with the individual who needs the help? Right. And you all come into play. I mean there were times when I helped out families in a church because they had somebody that needed help and they needed accountability and they needed treatment. And so they asked the church to help. The church asked me to help, and I stepped in and I helped to take care of certain things. And so that's the beauty of having that community is realizing that you're not in this on your own. Right. And to realize this, I think one thing that does happen, I've seen it in numerous churches, is when we face our storms, we internalize it so much and we don't think anybody else has ever gone through it. Right. And so it becomes your own story. It becomes your own difficulty. Right. And then you don't have the strength of others who have similar stories.
other similar fights that they've all had to endure, but we've isolated all of that, and so there's no sharing of our testimony, there's no sharing of our stories with each other, which is what we need to have the community come together and be like, hey, I'm with you on this.
See, and that makes complete. I understand exactly what you're saying, and and I think that some of the hard part of that is that you start to feel exposed, know, and for me, this whole situation that we're doing right now exposes me, but I am at a point in my life where I know who I am,
right?
And what someone else may think is not going to impact that, and that took a lot of time to get to there.
For sure.
And I, it's not that I don't know that I did things wrong. It's that I do know that I did things wrong. And because of that, I am not going to hide from those. Because if I hide from that, I am not. I probably will end up in that same spot.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if whatever it is that someone feels like they might be exposed, who cares?
Right.
You have to really get to a point where you think. So it's kind of that false fear that you have. Because you think somebody's going to judge you or they're not going to like you or whatever. Well, if that person doesn't like you because of something, or they don't, or they look down on you or whatever they do, that's not your problem. You know what I mean? And who cares? Because you're living your life. And let me tell you who won't look down on you. God.
Right.
He's there to help you, and so he's going to put people in your life that understand what you're doing or understand what you're going through, and so you need to hold on to that. And one of the other parts I was thinking about is if you want to confront somebody, about this addiction, and you don't want to do it alone, it's okay to have somebody there.
Yes,
because they feel even more exposed. I can tell you that much. You feel even more, and you might explode. But you're not going to explode to a point where, because somebody else is around.
Right.
Because even the addict thinks that the same way, like, oh, they might think something about me or whatever, while you're sitting in the back getting high. You know what I mean? So to me, that's what I mean by honesty.
Yeah.
You just have to be honest with yourself and accept, hey, this is something that happened in my life, but, this is the path I'm trying to make. Yeah. And so that's not who I am.
Yeah.
This is something that happened, and I might have made the wrong choice in that situation, but that does not define who you are.
Yeah.
And so I think that, the community is probably the most important part of this. And by community, I want to be a little more clear. By community, I mean like the people who are surrounding the addict and maybe the people around them.
Yes.
I'm not saying like everybody in town should be like, bah,
all of outwardly just.
Yeah, even though that would be nice if everybody. But I just think that I want to make it clear that if your instinct is telling you that this person needs help and or at least needs to be confronted or whatever that may be, don't deny that to yourself.
Yeah.
It's not that you're doing something wrong if you do. It's just that you're not going to be helping that person by just kind of letting it slide under the rug. Yeah. It's kind of like when I was a kid and it was time to clean the room.
Oh, under the bed.
Yeah, under the bed and sweep under the rug and see it's clean.
I'm done.
And then you're exposed because all of a sudden you're looking and you're like, no, this is not clean.
That's that closet that's bulging, and the mom opens it, and all this stuff just comes out. And
right, and we all tend to do that. We'll put this face on or this persona that we want people to understand. But
the term whitewashing involves taking a dirty fence, and instead of cleaning the fence, you take fresh white paint and you just cover the white.
Right.
That's the whitewashing.
Right. But the thing is that we have to stop being afraid of who we are.
Yes.
And my relationships with people today are the strongest relationships I've ever had.
Oh yeah.
And that's because I'm exposed to them,
Yes.
and I'm vulnerable, and I don't keep anything from them, you know, and I'm staying honest with myself. And when you can do that, you know, your bond with somebody is strengthens, you know. So you might want to consider that as well, you know, when you are trying to find a healthy person. So, you know, and that's the other part is that to be healthy, you kind of have to be around people who are healthy, you know, because I really, you know, my mom has always told me that, you know, whatever I want, I probably need to be in that place.
Well, there's a passage in the Bible that says bad company corrupts good character.
Right.
And so that's, if you want to be that, so then what you do is the way I liken it to like young people is don't ever put yourself in the minority.
Yeah.
You know, and what I mean by that, I mean like if you got solid convictions, like you're a healthy individual.
Right.
Don't put yourself by your own self in a group of unhealthy,
right.
because the majority of what's going to happen is that's going to swallow you out.
Right.
But if you as the unhealthy individual, or let's say two unhealthy individuals, go to where there's a group of healthy people, naturally what's going to happen is you guys are going to become healthy individuals.
Right. Because you start to think a little more like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine, and I loved how he could always talk about the Bible, always talk about Jesus, and I'm like, man, this is so inspiring. I've never been able to do that. That'd be so cool. So I hung out with him, just hoping I'd be able to start sounding like him.
Absorbing.
You take on the mannerisms. Yeah. You take on the way that they think. You begin to think in almost like pattern. You know, it's amazing when you see. I had the honor of seeing some married couples who were married. One couple was almost over 70 years, and another couple, you know, 50s. I'm like, hey, at that point, guess what happens at that point? Not only do they think alike, they look alike. You know, there's this merging of people, right. But that's the same way. And so having that strong community surrounding healthy people, you know, so you got the ripple effect. You have the immediate person who needs the need. The immediate community around them, you know, the household or the close friends. Then you have the surrounding community around those individuals, and then those individuals have their support communities around them. But you see that ripple effect comes out, and the thing is like you've got to have that majority of healthiness and really sound like, okay, I need to get into a place where I know they're going to stand with me. I know they're going to keep me healthy. They're going to help me keep up that perspective where I need to have it. Yeah. And so you surround yourself with those kind of individuals. Yeah.
Sometimes it's difficult because you don't see it or you don't think something's wrong.
Right.
And that's okay. You know, sometimes we have to protect ourselves from breaking into some kind of stress or anxiety. But the truth is that, you know, we all could use to be healthier than we are.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like I have a long ways to go. There's no denying that. Yeah. You know, but if you could break that in your own mind and say, you know what, I really do need to be around this person who is positive and maybe has been through some things and can teach me some things and show me how to be a little more healthy and how to be a little more honest and how to see things a little more clearly. Well, you know, why wouldn't you do that?
Right.
You know,
that's important.
Right. You know, and so if you were confronting me as the addict, I already feel ashamed and guilty and hurt and lost. You know, and those things, because I don't want you to know that that's the way I feel. I cover it with anger, or I cover it with just being quiet. You know, I don't want to talk, or you know, I suddenly become in this, you know, internalize everything and what is that? An introvert. I become introverted. You know.
Yeah.
And so what I would ask is if somebody did confront, you know, that you take that into consideration. That yes, they are making mistakes. Yes, they are an addict. Yes, they are doing drugs. You know, but yes, they are still people, and they know how lost that they have gotten, and they're scared. I was scared. I mean, I was depressed. There was a point in my during my process that I couldn't wait for the day when it was the last time, thinking I just couldn't wait for death.
Wow.
And it was it's a terrible way to live.
Right.
And then you try to hide so much from everybody that you start to feel so alone, like nobody else knows how you feel, nobody else knows how you think, and even the other addicts, how I'm worse. That's the way you look at it. I'm worse. They don't know. So when you approach them, just understand that they are people.
Yeah.
And that they are going through it.
Right.
And that there is, there's no right way. I don't know that there's a wrong way.
No.
Well,
I think the biggest takeaway, it's been about an hour already, but I think the greatest takeaway is when you are having to step up and face the situation, as the one who's holding the accountability or confronting the situation, that love is absolutely paramount. Going back to that tough love, you're dealing with an individual who is already aware of the depths of the depravity that covers their mind. Right. They're already aware of that, and so going in and reminding them of how awful they are, and being like, "You're so terrible. You're so why could you?" And they just lay that guilt on. Right. That doesn't do them any favors. But if they go in such a way and say, "Hey, look, you're better than this. Right. You're stronger than this. I'm," and you approach that. The way I liken it is, how would I want somebody to come to me if I needed a situation to be fixed? Like, do I want them to come there and harass and destroy me, or do I want them to be like, "Hey, I'm going to reach into where you're at. I'm going to pull you out. Right. I love you. You're coming with me. I'm not going to leave you here." And you do those tough love steps. Right. And you know what? Hey, if some of that tough love that you have to do is too hard to do by yourself, don't do it by yourself. Right. You grab, and this is key, you grab a loving individual, a compassionate individual to go with you. Right. That I think that's key. If you grab somebody who's going to be angry and resentful, and that resentful individual is going to go with you, you're not going to have that kind of response. But if you bring someone who is compassionate, you bring somebody who is loving, who's on your side of correcting and confronting the situation, understanding that, but comes at it from that compassionate directive, because again, we're not about going to destroy the person. Right. We're going there to heal the person, right. Or to confront, to bring wholeness and health back.
And they're probably you would probably need to do that when you're not emotional, because what happens is that especially when you're family, you yell. I've yelled at my family members,
tempers flare,
and
things
all that,
go up.
And so if you do it when you're emotional, and then it just becomes a fight.
Yes.
So you kind of have to get yourself to a point where you don't have to confront them right that second, but you're going to want to do something, and you don't have to kick them out of the house. That's not what I'm saying. There are other ways. You can tell them, let's go for a ride, and take them to go get a Rule 25, or to go to a treatment to at least look at it, or a sober house, or to a meeting, or to talk to somebody who's actually in recovery. Yeah. You can do that, and more than likely, if you do it with a calm mind, they will at least agree to it. They might not want to do it. Believe me, it was like you don't want to do it, but because as that addict, I do love you, so I will at least give you this. Right. But if you come at me in an angry way, it's just a fight, and that's never going to happen.
Well, and
so there's probably a proper way to do some of that, and having support, I think, is the best idea. Yeah. I know that when they do 12-stepping in the program, they don't just have, they usually have like 3 people. They'll go to the house, and they will confront the person and say, "You know what, I'm an addict too. Yeah. And this is what I've done." you know, and we're scared for you, and we understand you're on this path, and we don't want to see it keep going.
Right.
So, you know, maybe you could come to a meeting with us,
Yeah.
or they start to read the big book with them, or whatever, you know. And, you know, like I said, there's all kinds of ways,
Yep.
you know, but I think that, again, it's important that we're focused here kind of on the community and how they not only can help themselves, but have the support that they need just in general in their life, you know, because the healthier they are, the harder it is for the addict to be in their pattern.
Yes.
You know, and that's what we're, you know, I mean, that's kind of what we're all after is how can we just expose this whole epidemic.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
I don't want to see people continue to die.
No.
I'm tired of it. It's very hard.
Yeah.
Because I see myself.
Yes.
And so it hurts me in my heart when, even if I don't know them, it's like, wow, you know, that's me.
Well, you see your story there.
Yeah, you know, and it sucks.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want it to continue. I want to know how to stop it, but I don't. Yeah. So I'm here asking, you know, let's work this out. Yeah. Let's do something.
Yeah.
So.
We're gonna wrap up, but I'm gonna kind of summarize here real quickly for us. When we talk community, we're talking proximity. We're talking around that individual, and then the group around the individual. If you are, the beauty with online is that, you know, we're here in southern Minnesota, but you could be anywhere across the globe, and so if you're enjoying these, thank you. My hope is that if you have an individual who you recognize is using, that you surround yourself with healthy people, a healthy community, so that you're strong to come and get the one that you care about taken care of. And know this, that we are praying for you here at the church, and that we love you, and that we love you, and that we stand with you, and we just are so thankful for your participation. Thank you so much, and we'll talk next time.